about shared content and the communities that kind of build up around shared content is that there are ways to reward people, and it doesn't have to be monetary. In fact, I think people often are more motivated by an altruistic sense of return rather than what's my monetary return. And in the case of a Lego Ambassador, which is a group out on lovenet.net, they are paid in Lego bricks. No money exchanged. So I think those are neat examples. The other one I want to share with you is about syndicated content. And it sounds more complicated than it is. When I've explained it to others, I've had people say, oh, it's TiVo, but it's for web pages. And if you know what TiVo is, and you have fallen in love with it as I have, it basically lets you record things ahead of time, and then when you're ready to sit down and watch it or look at it, that's when you can do that. And so what you do, and you try to find a feed on any site. Blogs offer feeds, wikis offer feeds. And basically, it's the only three-letter acronym I can think of in social media is RSS. RSS stands for really simple syndication. So you may already realize that your users are wanting some sort of, I want to get the content when I want to get it. Don't email me, don't bug me, that kind of thing. But there are other things you can do with syndicated content that I wanted to at least share with you, and I call these stupid RSS tricks. So one of the things you can do is find out what is the buzz and what kind of things are going on with your product. So you might subscribe to a search for your product name, and then when you want to, you can go see what has been updated about your product. You can also search for a certain thing that you want to buy on a classified ad, such as Craigslist, and then anytime that particular Thomas the Tank Engine train that my son wants comes up for sale used on Craigslist, I can go in my feed reader and I see, hey, I'm going to try to go buy James. He's great. You can also follow group conversations instead of only having things come into your email inbox. So this is a way of kind of keeping your email for work only or email for conversations only, but allowing yourself to go out and just read whatever's going on in a particular news group, or when you're looking for something that you're troubleshooting, just going out and looking at the RSS feed instead of your email. Another interesting one is package tracking. You can actually go to a package tracking website, and eBay resellers say this is great, but it actually gives you notifications. And also, there's a way to search for job leads on Indeed.com with RSS notification. And so what you would do is go to Indeed.com and search for whatever keywords in whatever area you're looking at. And instead of just going and doing that every day, you just subscribe to a feed with those searches already enabled, and then you can check in your feed reader for if there's any updates. A fun one I did a little bit ago was I searched for my product name, and it's IMIS, I-M-I-N-S, and I searched for jobs in Arkansas or Virginia, and I was able to find out what job descriptions people had and what might be of interest to them. Database administration was a secondary requirement for many of the jobs related to my product. So I think that's also a good way to kind of stalk your users, so to speak. It's instead of just going out to the website, just subscribe to a feed. So another one, and this is, one of my favorites, of course, is the idea of community. And a lot of communities can spring up around wikis. And communities might gather around a common goal that may not have to do with a collection of content. So while I classify wikis under the community discussion, a community can be as simple as an online forum. It can be as an email list. But if you really want to provide this kind of wiki platform that would enable people to talk to each other or talk back to you as the writer or as the company representative, you can build a wiki. And I'll talk a little bit about how I think that building a wiki might be kind of a later stage of this whole idea of diving into conversational documentation. But if you do decide to start a wiki, I highly recommend the Wiki Patterns book by Stuart Mader. And I'll just switch over now to his website is excellent as well. He has a lot of people patterns and adoption patterns documented, as well as anti-patterns for both of those. And it's just a great site and a great book. And if you just start clicking around, you'll start to see some of the things that might help you. If you've already started a wiki and you're not sure why it's kind of stalled out, this is a really useful website. And I have some guidelines for what I consider to be good ideas when you're starting a wiki. And a lot of them are just kind of the classic technical communication skills that we already have. You want to conduct audience analysis. You don't want to build a wiki unless people have requested it or you can somehow show that there will be interest in it. And Stuart Mader, in his book, definitely says to do a pilot run first. And that means just identifying some content or a small group of users that may benefit from a wiki and do a small project with them. I think that's a great idea. And it'll help you work out all of the issues that you find as you go along. I also think that you can build a wiki style guide, and I don't mean some long, huge tome or taking your corporate style guide and putting it into a wiki. I mean, it's probably a page or two that says how to get started with the wiki, what kinds of, basically like conventions that you use on your wiki, so that as authors come in, you can help them bring offerings that are consistent. Another thing that you have to do with a wiki is set rules for arbitration. And what I mean by that is that the thing about the way a wiki model works is that it only allows one article to be the truth at any given time. And it's kind of an interesting model. Stuart Mader likes to say, your wiki is not Wikipedia. And I actually stood up and cheered when I read that in his book, because the thing about Wikipedia is it gets a lot of media attention, but it is really not what a wiki that anybody would use in an enterprise environment would have behaviors like. Wikipedia is a wonderful, basically, battleground for arguing, and people are actually entertained by that. And that's what I mean by the model of a wiki is that it only allows one article to be the truth at any given time. Now, in your corporate environment, you will probably have to be sure that you have an area that contains the warranted vetted content. This is the content that we stand behind. And you can mark your wiki or have separate wikis that indicate that in such a way that people won't be confused. Now, an interesting story I like to tell is that it's one of the very popular wikis is the World of Warcraft wiki. It's called WoW Wiki. And people build communities around it and guilds and I don't know what all. But one of the interesting thing about gaming wikis and people who try to write strategy guides for the game is that are in a little competition with the game developers. And the game developers don't really want to reveal which weapons or which defense mechanisms are the best for any particular situation, but the people who author on the wiki are very interested in doing these strategy guides. So they may have huge spreadsheets of what happens when you use this sword and what kind of reaction. And the thing about a wiki is that the company, because they're kind of like in this little competition, they would not say who was right. They would not say, yes, the long sword. They would not defend this person's data. And so I have a friend of mine who just walked away in disgust, threw his hands up in the air because he could never find out the truth from that particular wiki. So that's my little World of Warcraft wiki story. I definitely think you should try to integrate the wiki with your other content, and it may even just be yet another deliverable. There are plenty of models that do that, but you don't want your wiki to look very different from the rest of your stuff. You want to make sure it's branded with your corporate guidelines. And you may need to make sure that your wiki has original content, or just only use the wiki for certain types of content. I think that IBM or Sun does this, where they only have tutorials out on the wiki. And I think it was IBM, but they basically made a very distinct choice. The wiki is going to contain this, and that's it. As with all web delivery, you have to beware of spammers, and you should back up. And that's just basically good information technology practices. So I also think that with a wiki, it's important to keep updating content. And that, you come to a wiki and it hasn't updated in over a year, you're pretty suspicious of the trustworthiness of the content. You may also want to offer training sessions or a brown bag lunch if it's an internal wiki.